Hi guys, today we have Sara and she's gonna tell us all about one problem she has had and how she has tackled it.
Yeah, so Sarah, just to start off, will you be able to actually describe what the problem was and how it made you feel?
I had pretty bad anxiety for a long period, and I've always been quite an anxious person since I was a child. I don't know, I was stressing about every possible thing in the world, but I never considered it a bad thing, or I never really paid attention to it. I just let it be. And then in 8th grade, um, I did a really silly thing. The anxiety has been mounting up in me for so many years that this was what triggered it. And for this year, every day, I had this weird feeling in my stomach that I wanted to cry. I could have cried every second. I was just panicking the whole time about nothing realistic. And I think that's the thing with anxiety, that it's mostly tied to something that's not very realistic. It's in your head. Like people who have social anxiety, that something is going to happen if they go if they're around people. So I had this thing that's this irrational fear of the future, that I'm eventually gonna go blind because of this, what I did, and it never happened. And it's been 6 years ago, so I think I'm fine now. But then after this year, I was like, I can't ignore this anymore. It's just with me every day, and I can't deal with it. I don't know what's wrong with me. So because, as I said, I was just crying. My mum didn't know what to do because I wouldn't listen to anyone. So I saw a psychologist after this year for a couple of sessions, and she started some breathing methods, and she started asking me, and that's where I realized that the problem wasn't the solar eclipse, but this anxiety that has been like mounting up during it. This was just the breaking point that like triggered the whole thing.
When you had this problem, how did you then you said you mentioned your psychologist. Was there anything else that you done to kind of overcome it?
Yeah, so when I started talking to my psychologist, I realized that talking is really good. So for one, I started talking to other people about it. This is how I found out that one of my other friends had anxiety as well, even worse than she had social anxiety. So that's why I mentioned that earlier. And she started telling me how her life was with social anxiety, and it was quite a bonding experience to talk about it. Other than that, I found that the only way for me, because I couldn't wrap my mind around it, that it's not going to happen, that nothing's going to happen to my eyes. So it was like the best thing is to focus to something else until I forget this whole madness. So I literally tried to focus on anything I could find every second of the day, like how beautiful the day is, how green the leaves are, how, I don't know, how nice my mum is, or stuff like that. I literally tried to enjoy every second so that I didn't have to think about this. And eventually, I started to think about it less and less until I completely forgot about it. And then I still have days, or like not days, but when it comes back, and I still panic, but I know that it's not because of that anymore. It's just this time that really triggers it. And that was like the moment where I realized that that my whole anxiety resulted from being a perfectionist and doing something wrong, like looking in the sun. I did that wrong, so I was blaming myself for that. And I realized that I did this my whole life, that whenever something went wrong, I have beaten myself up for so long. And that's where I started to like let go. Like I still struggle with it. But at least I know now what I have to work on.
Oh, that's really good. And how do you feel now, like kind of coming out of it after you've dealt with it a lot, after you've been through, after you've talked it through with your psychologist and your friends? Like, do you feel a lot better when you're focusing on things like that?
Yeah, like it was like, I've never understood that thing where like lift the weight off your shoulders, but it literally felt like it, like I was so liberated, because I knew that this was just, my mind just got too much of me obsessing over my mistakes and trying to do everything perfect. And I understood that this was 13, 14 years until this whole thing built up, and I'm not going to be able to completely forget about it, or be completely 100% confident with dealing with it for a lot of years, because you can't just reverse it from one second to another. But it was just really reassuring that I knew what it was, and that I can just try to focus less on doing everything right, and that mistakes come and go, and they don't mean that that if you make a mistake, it's gonna change your life forever. So yeah, I kind of accepted it, that you can't control everything, and this is not the last time that I did something wrong that could affect my health or my mental health or other people. But you just have to try to make your best to solve it afterwards, and not beat yourself up about the whole thing.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It was so nice to talk to you.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's not easy to talk about something like that.
No, I literally have that lump in my stomach, but it's fine.
Oh, you're so cute. Thank you.